talk about Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns. This was the worst case situation for Deshaun Watson and the Browns as a whole. Back-to-back seasons have been cut short due to injuries. Last season, tears his shoulder up against the Baltimore Ravens, was not able to finish the season. And you look at what just happened in today's game against the Cincinnati Bengals. He tries to take off, tears his Achilles. They lose this game 21-14. On the bright side, Jameis Winston came in. He did look better than Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I don't understand why Kevin Stefanski loves him so much, but Jameis Winston should be the starter for the rest of the season. Even before Deshaun Watson got injured, Jameis Winston should have been the starter. Because I want to talk about this as well. Deshaun Watson has played a lot of games with the Cleveland Browns up to this point. He has not been a good quarterback in any other games besides the game against the Baltimore Ravens. Deshaun Watson has been one of the main reasons to why this team hasn't won football games this season. And I understand injuries to the offensive line, they dealt with drop passes, yes. But when you look at the eye test on film, Deshaun Watson has not been good. He's a shell of a former himself. And when you look at what they gave up to get Deshaun Watson and the contract as well, it's easily the worst situation in the NFL. And now it got even worse because now this man can't stay healthy. They're going to have to draft a quarterback in the first round unless Jameis Winston goes out there and has a Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, or Sam Darnold type of arc with the Cleveland Browns. Because there's talent there with Jameis Winston. The only thing is with Jameis Winston are the turnovers. That's it. Jameis Winston can be a solid quarterback from week to week if he tones down on the turnovers. I knew Deshaun Watson was cooked when I saw him at the beginning point of this season. I saw the same system work out with Baker Mayfield a couple years ago. Kevin Stefanski was the head coach, made the NFL playoffs. They even won a playoff game against the Steelers. Last year, Kevin Stefanski beat up offensive line. 2 top tackles are out. Starting safety in Grant Delpit is out. Nick Chubb goes out in week 2 against the Steelers. They make the NFL playoffs with Joe Flacco. They called him off his couch. And Joe Flacco's having a pretty good stint with the Indianapolis Colts right now. Deshaun Watson was cooked before this injury. But this is the worst situation in the NFL, not because of Kevin Stefanski. It's because of ownership. They wanted to go out there and make a huge splash and bring in a brand new quarterback. And at the time, Deshaun Watson was a top 5 quarterback. But I will say this, the Browns made a mistake. You gave up too much to bring Deshaun Watson in, and you paid him a fully guaranteed contract before he even took a single snap for you. This is a quarterback that has missed so much time. He's going to miss the rest of this season. He missed a good portion of last season as well. We go back a couple of years ago. His first stint with the Cleveland Browns in his first year, he missed 12 games because of a suspension. You can say that's not his fault, but it is his fault. He shouldn't have did what he did off the field. Those allegations should have never came out against him. That's on Deshaun Watson. Regardless of how you feel about it, he put himself in that situation. He did that. So he's the reason why he missed those 12 games. And the year before that, once again, he decided to sit out with the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans didn't force him to sit out that last season. He did because he was unhappy with the franchise. And when you look at the balance of power, you look at the Houston Texans right now. They are a top team in the AFC. You look at the Cleveland Browns. They still don't have a quarterback. And you traded a lot to go get this man. He has been a failure with the Cleveland Browns. And I understand the injuries to the offensive line. I understand the bad play calling with Kevin Stefanski. Yes, but when guys are wide open, he just can't hit them. And he never had the strongest arms to begin with, even coming out of college. That was the one knack on him. He could not push the football deep down the field effectively enough, especially in certain weather. So when I look at a guy like Deshaun Watson, his prime is far behind him. And this is also a man that suffered a torn ACL with the Houston Texans as well his rookie season. He can't stay healthy. He can't go out there and have the escapability that he once had. He can't go out there and break tackles and move in space like how he once could. I remember that Buffalo Bills playoff game when they went out there and they won that game against Josh Allen and the crew. A young Josh Allen. This was a quarterback at the time before Patrick Mahomes won that crazy Super Bowl run. They were regarding this man in the same conversation with Patrick Mahomes. They had him in the same conversation with guys like Josh Allen at the time. We're far removed from that. Deshaun Watson was one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL this season before he suffered that torn Achilles. So moving off of Deshaun Watson is the best case scenario for the Cleveland Browns. The problem is this. He has a fully guaranteed contract the next 2 seasons. And this man is the ultimate competitor. We saw that with Clemson. We saw that with the Houston Texans. Hell, we saw that last season with the Browns. He's not going to forfeit this money. So now they're going to have to go out there and bring in another quarterback in the first round because they would be idiots not to do so. And if Jameis Winston does go out there and he has a crazy rest of the season and they can ride the ship and possibly go out there and make the NFL playoffs, you're going to have to pay Jameis Winston a lot of money with Deshaun Watson. That's almost impossible. And this is a Browns team that has a lot of talent. You have Myles Garrett, who's a very good football player, one of the best players in the NFL. I really like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. The secondary is elite in my opinion. Now, the defense is not the same like how it was last season. Part of that is because of how horrible the offense has been. But when I look at this defense with Jim Schwartz, they're not a bad defense at all. I like the unit that they have, especially with Martin Emerson Jr. He's a very good cornerback. And Denzel Ward, very good player in his own right, and Greg Newsome. You have good players on defense. The defense was elite last season. And they made the NFL playoffs with Joe Flacco. And you had all those injuries. So you can say that Kevin Stefanski tried to go out there and sabotage Deshaun Watson. I don't believe that. He had a lot of easy reads for Deshaun Watson this season. He just couldn't hit him because he holds onto the football for too long, which was also a problem that he had with the Houston Texans. This will go down as one of, if not the worst trade in Cleveland Browns history. Because you did have Baker Mayfield on the roster. Now, Baker Mayfield did not look the same. Baker Mayfield, at that point in time, that last year with the Browns, he was done. But he was hurt. He had a torn labrum. He was beat up. Baker Mayfield was not going to work out long-term for the Cleveland Browns because he needed a brand new change of scenery. They brought in Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry. He could not get down the chemistry with Odell Beckham Jr. It seemed like everyone turned their back on Baker Mayfield in the national media. They were done with him. I was done with him as well. They trade him off to the Carolina Panthers and you bring in Deshaun Watson. They basically slapped him in the face because they had a lot of success with Baker Mayfield. But I will say this, in defense of Baker Mayfield and in defense of every quarterback that has walked through the Cleveland Browns door, they have never been able to go out there and fully develop a quarterback in the last few decades. Have not been able to. They should have brought back Joe Flacco. They should have brought in some more pieces to help this thing out. Because you're going to be stuck with Deshaun Watson regardless. But at least you would have an option of a guy that could come in and have success from last season. They did go out there. They did trade Amari Cooper to the Buffalo Bills. I look at it from this situation. Amari Cooper had a lot of drops this season. He's going to be better off with the Buffalo Bills anyway. And you get you a good draft pick out of that deal from the Bills. You have Cedric Tillman, who we saw today can be a very good, reliable wide receiver if you give him the opportunity. You have David Njoku, who was very good last season as well. Elijah Moore, that's an interesting player. And you have Jerry Jeudy. So they don't have just a bunch of bombs in the receiving room. They're going to miss Amari Cooper in his route running, but they're going to be okay, especially in this system with Kevin Stefanski. But David Njoku, he got unlocked when he was playing with Joe Flacco. Deshaun Watson couldn't get him the football effectively enough. Deshaun Watson could not get anyone the football effectively enough. This is still the worst situation in the NFL. And the reason why a lot of owners, they look at the Cleveland Browns sideways is because of this. You traded for a quarterback that missed his entire last season with his former team because he was unhappy. He had all the allegations, but the Browns did not care. They said, guess what? We need a franchise quarterback. We have first-round picks. Take our first-round picks, and you know what, Deshaun Watson? Give you a cherry on top. Yes, you just signed a contract extension with the Houston Texans. We'll make it even better. We'll rip up that contract. We'll make sure your contract is fully guaranteed. That was unheard of at the time, and they ruined the quarterback market. Because you have quarterbacks now like Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts saying, man, you know what? If Deshaun Watson's getting paid that, I have done nothing wrong off the field, and I'm here every single year playing for the team. I've never held out. And my numbers, they're better than Deshaun Watson. Give me more money. They basically sped up the quarterback process in terms of getting paid a lot. Now quarterbacks are getting paid an enormous amount of money. Now that was going to happen regardless, but they just sped up the process because that position is so important in today's NFL. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a team essentially. If you do not have an elite quarterback, there's almost zero chance that you can win in today's game. And I look at it from this situation with the Browns. It couldn't have happened to a better team. And I don't say that to be I don't say that to be spiteful because I feel bad for the fans. I say that to ownership. Look at all the players they screwed over. Look at all the coaches that they've screwed over the last couple of decades. That's on ownership. This is one of the worst ownership groups in the NFL. And they have good guys in the front office. They have guys with good football knowledge. But ownership came down with Thor's hammer and said, you know what? We're going to get our guy no matter what. And they did that. The Cleveland Browns, they'll go out there, they'll have success one season, and next thing you know, they'll fall off a cliff. You hired a coach in Hugh Jackson who was terrible, and you let him stick around. Then they fired him, they pushed him out. Then you bring in Freddie Kitchens. He was terrible as well. They don't know what they're doing. And bringing in a quarterback that's washed up, wasn't going to ever go out there and have the success that he had with the Houston Texans was one of the biggest mistakes that they have ever made in franchise history. And now when I look at the quarterbacks in this year's draft class, this is one of the weakest quarterback draft classes we've seen. You're going to go with a guy like Shedeur Sanders. I don't see them trying to put up with Deion Sanders' attitude. And you know that Deion Sanders is going to have a lot to say. Maybe you go with a guy like Cam Ward out of Florida. Maybe you bring him in out of Miami. Maybe you bring him in. They're going to have to draft a quarterback. Well, maybe they go with a guy like Quinn Ewers or Carson Beck. I don't see either one of those guys being a first-round pick. I don't see either one of those guys working out in the NFL level. This was the worst situation for the Cleveland Browns that was possible. Maybe they go out there and they bring in a veteran quarterback, or maybe Jameis Winston works out long term. I do believe that Jameis Winston has talent. The only thing is just the turnovers. Then when you look at a guy like Nick Chubb as well, he played in today's game. He was able to get a rushing touchdown. I'm worried about Nick Chubb long term. Those knee injuries add up. He suffered a brutal knee injury last season. He suffered a brutal knee injury in college as well. Usually running backs don't get better from that. But to see Deshaun Watson tear his shoulder up last season and to see him tear his Achilles this season, he needs to give it up. And it's time for him to retire. And that's the best case scenario for the best situation for the Browns long term. It's if Deshaun Watson comes out and say, you know what, I'm done, I'm going to retire. But with the money that he has, it's not going to happen. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you guys feel about Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.